So we're going to go ahead, and here would be my request is if you wouldn't mind muting yourself. We love you to death, but if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, we would be so very grateful. And just a reminder that if you don't mind keeping yourself muted and going to invite folks to use the chat freely and vigorously and put any questions and comments in there. We would love to hear what's on your mind. And just given the size, that would be really helpful. And let me say just a couple of things before we get going, and I'll repeat them in a little while. Let me mostly start by saying that our PJ is still wrestling with a really awful respiratory bug, and so I am pinch hitting today for her. She will hopefully be back in March. I'm a late substitute, so I'm asking for a little bit of grace in facilitating today. And I'm seeing a lot of new faces. A great, great warm welcome to everybody who is new. And to everybody who is not new. If this is your first Troubler meeting, we're so happy to have you with us. And if you wouldn't mind putting your name and address in the chat so we can follow up with you, that would be really great. And I'll say that again in a little while. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. And actually, before I share it, let me also just give some appreciation. I don't think she's on yet, to Mary Lou, who always does our PowerPoints, and to both Pam Wishay and Pat Bird, who are responsible for putting together the agenda and the run of show. These meetings take much more work than they look like, and so great gratitude to them. And let me get started here. Okay, so a great welcome. Let me go ahead and start, as always, by saying a little bit about current context. And our context, again, is really twofold. This is a big year for the legislative session, and it's a big year in terms of elections. And so I want to say a little bit about dates for both of those. In terms of the legislative session, just a reminder that day one of the legislative session was January 8th. This past Friday was day 22, a reminder that we have 40 days altogether, so we are just past the midway mark. Crossover day is February 29th, and that's just a reminder that any bill that doesn't make it out of its chamber and into the other chamber by February 29th does not live to see another day. So things are starting to get very hot at the legislative session. And sine die, the last day of the legislative session is March 28th, which is legislative day 40. And a reminder also that that this is the second year, 2024 is the second year of our 2-year legislative term. They go in 2 years. And so any bill that was still alive, that didn't make it all the way through last year automatically lived to this season, to this session. And any bill that does not make it through this session does not continue on to next year. So it is a hot time down there. And because it's an election year, it is a particularly hot time because the GOP in election year tends to want to feed their base a lot of red meat. And so we are seeing some really appalling bills, which we will hear about. A little bit of context in terms of elections. Candidate qualifying week is March 4th, so March 4th through March 8th. Presidential primary, and a reminder that the presidential primary is a different day than the primary for all the other elections. So the presidential primary, the election day is March 12th, and early voting begins tomorrow. And we were talking in advance of the meeting, giving great appreciation and great gratitude to everybody here who is either doing poll working or poll watching. And if we are lucky, it will be a very boring poll watching and poll working experience. And we're hoping it goes well, but great gratitude to all the troublers who have signed up to do both of those things. The general primary, as well as the nonpartisan elections, will be May 21st. And the general election is November 5th, and the general election runoff is December 3rd. So just, yeah, it is silly to say, but just a reminder, it is a huge, huge, huge year. And let me pause there and say again, it's a particularly good year for us to be welcoming a lot of new troublers. And if this is your first Necessary Trouble meeting, if you would put your name and email in the chat so we can follow up with you, that would be wonderful. A reminder to those who didn't hear it that our own PJ Lemuel is dealing with respiratory illness today. So if y'all would send her a lot of love, that would be great. We will miss her, and hopefully she'll be back at our March meeting, but I'm going to pinch hit for her. And if you don't mind keeping your mic muted and put any comments or questions in the chat. So, given the legislative agenda and given the legislative context and given the electoral contexts, our agenda is really divided into two pieces today. Well, really three. And the first is we're going to get a couple of perspectives on the Georgia General Assembly so far and what we're expecting to hear. And the people that are going to help us understand that are Jeff Graham, Executive Director of Georgia Equality, and Representative Dr. Jasmine Clark, whom we are always so glad to welcome back. And then we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about our Georgia House candidates that we voted on at the last Necessary Trouble session, and we voted to adopt them as our candidates for this year. And we will be hearing again from Representative Dr. Jasmine Clark with her other hat on, and Susie Greenberg, who is the candidate that we are supporting, who's running to flip House District 53. And then we will be hearing Troubler work updates. So that's the agenda. And so the first chunk that we'll be dealing with is the Georgia General Assembly. I'm going to be introducing Jeff Graham, and then we'll turn it over to Karen Davenport, who will be introducing Jasmine Clark. And then Karen will, at the end of both of their presentations, Karen will facilitate Q&A. So if you have questions either for Jeff or for Jasmine during their presentations, just put them in the chat, and we will circle back at the end of hearing from both of them. And it is a lovely thing for me to get to introduce Jeff. For those who don't know, Jeff is the Executive Director of Georgia Equality, which is the #1 crucial organization in Georgia for LGBTQ plus rights and advocacy. Jeff started working on these issues in the mid-1980s on these issues and also AIDS-related issues. So to his everlasting credit, he has been an advocate on these issues for 40 plus years. So Jeff, thank you so much for that work, for all that. In fact, if we could just give a little bit of appreciation for what he has already done. And I was saying before the meeting started that when Necessary Trouble first began in 2017, we knew nothing. And we invited two people, the first two people to come and talk to us. The first was State Senator Elena Parent, and we asked her to come and explain the Georgia Assembly to us because we had no idea. We had no idea how it even worked. And then the second person we invited to come speak to us was Jeff Graham. And we invited him to come and asked us to help us understand how to do advocacy, which he did graciously and generously. So in many ways, Jeff is I consider Jeff one of the godfathers, godparents of Necessary Trouble. So Jeff, great gratitude for all you've done already. And thank you for coming and talking to us today. And I'm going to turn this over to you.
Absolutely, Becky. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I first off, I want to thank all of you for your hard work. I can't believe it's been since 2017. We have grown together as a progressive movement here in Georgia since that time. And Becky, you specifically have done just amazing work of helping all of our organizations understand and be able to better track the municipal races. There's, hundreds and hundreds of candidates on the ballot. It seems like almost every single year. And Becky, you have really helped keep us organized. So I want to thank you and appreciate you as well. And it's so good to see so many friends on the call today. So we'll start, Georgia Equality, we do LGBTQ issues. We also do advocacy on behalf of all people living with HIV. We'll start with we'll start with the good news. And that is that this is a really exciting time for those of us who have been working for over a decade to try to get Georgia to expand Medicaid. The conversations are finally heading in the right direction. We really have a chance to close the coverage gap, which would help 500,000 people or more. 500,000 has been what we've been looking at, but I'm sure most of you have been following in the news. There's now close to an additional 500,000 people, many of them children, that have lost their Medicaid coverage because of the challenges with having to recertify now that the public health emergency has ended. So, the coverage gap itself has always been to get at that 500,000 people that remain uninsured in Georgia and have not been able to qualify for Medicaid in the past and don't make enough money to actually be able to purchase insurance through the Affordable Care Act marketplace. On top of that, we're looking at now an additional 300,000 or 500,000 people that if we did have an expanded Medicaid program, it would be easier to get them recertified. So I remain tuned for that. We'll see what will happen. There's a lot going on, as Becky had said, over the next little less than 2 weeks as we get to crossover day. Just because you don't see any bill around the closing the coverage gap appear before crossover day, that does not mean that issue is dead. So the one thing to kind of keep in mind with the crossover day is that it is an important deadline, but it is also just one marker. As I often say, there's a reason that for years and years and years they filmed Walking Dead here, and that's because bills and issues have a tendency to come back to life after crossover day when we all think that they're dead. With that in mind, I think that's something to really keep our eyes on. We also, I think we'll see some important movements towards expanding access to some HIV prevention efforts, very specifically post-exposure prophylaxis, making that available, especially to folks that may have been in a situation where they had sexual assault, to be able to make it easier for pharmacists to prescribe this medication so they don't have to go to a health department, they don't have to go to an AIDS-serving organization. And that, again, would be the beginning of a very important conversation about HIV prevention here in Georgia. So that's the good news and the exciting stuff. What's not so exciting is the fact that for the LGBT community, we're having a really tough time. not just here in Georgia, it's around the country, especially our brothers, sisters, siblings, and kids that identify as transgender. They are really under a lot of fire right now. Last year, Senate Bill 140 passed that did restrictions on health care for transgender minors that included hormone replacement therapy. Late Friday, it got dropped into the Senate hopper. The chair of the Senate Health Committee, Senator Ben Watson, has now dropped a bill that would expand those restrictions even more to include medications that delay the onset of puberty. So we don't yet know how the momentum behind that bill, but for the chair of the committee to drop it this close to crossover day has me incredibly concerned that we're going to see further restrictions on parents' ability to work with healthcare providers and make medical decisions for their kids. And even if you don't have transgender folks in your life, I think that's the important erosion of rights that we all need to be incredibly concerned about, is this overreach that is saying that legislators know more than doctors, healthcare providers, and parents when it comes to the healthcare for their kids. The second thing that I'm very concerned about that we saw some movement this last week is a bill that restricts the ability of kids to have conversations about gender identity with educators. There's going to be it's a very convoluted bill full of contradictions. Senate Bill 88. Um, it came out of committee. This bill it took 4 hearings to get it out of committee. It finally happened. It does put a lot of restrictions on private schools, which frankly I'm hoping may slow it down and maybe prevent it from getting a full vote in the Senate floor, because that's actually been very controversial amongst Republicans about these putting restrictions and doing curriculum guidance for private schools. It also affects public schools in a very broad way. All schools, school boards would have to create policies of how the topic of gender identity is handled, both in terms of curriculum, but more importantly, in terms of what happens if a student asks a teacher to start calling them by a name that may be more masculine or more feminine than they normally identify as. And you know, if you've got a loving set of parents, it's not a big deal. But for unfortunately far too many kids, it's still roughly 40% of homeless youth, or unstably housed youth here in Georgia identify as LGBTQ. And so we know that there's still a number of kids that have parents that are not going to be supportive if they find out that they identify as gay or transgender. And these are the kids that we're most worried about. So be on the lookout to see what may happen with further movement on Senate Bill 88. The last Senate bill that I want to talk about is just those of you who've been listening and following us for a while. Since 2014, we have been battling the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. This is a bill that on its surface sounds really good, but it actually, because Georgia is one of only 3 states that has no broad civil rights protection for any group of people, not just members of the LGBT community, but we don't have broad protections in employment, public accommodations, and very limited protections in housing for people based on race, nationality, sex, age, veteran status, disability, as well as religion, sexual orientation, and gender identity. But if we would create a carve out and civil rights protections for only one group of people, people of faith, that automatically creates a loophole that people could unfortunately use their faith and their religious beliefs as a license to discriminate against other people. We've seen this used in other states, adoption agencies, Christian adoption agencies that don't want to work with Jewish people. We've seen police officers that have not wanted to provide security for Islamic events or Muslim temples. This is, opens up a can of worms. It could be incredibly dangerous. We've been hearing for 9 months that there's going to be a big push for that this year. We've not seen it yet, which is the good news. As we get closer to crossover day, we're going to be more and more concerned about that. And then the last bill that I wanted to bring to folks' attention, we're still waiting some further legal analysis. We don't know if this is going to get a hearing yet or not, but it's House Bill 1128, which we are calling the Mandate to Discriminate bill. The media has called it by the bill's title, which is a Women's Bill of Rights. It's not. It's no one's Bill of Rights. And what it does is it narrowly defines sex under state law based upon people's body parts and reproductive capability at birth. So a very narrow definition of sex. Then there's definitions of masculinity and femininity. This is clearly targeted at transgender folks to prohibit transgender individuals from getting driver's licenses, using restrooms, locker rooms, having access to athletic facilities, being able to have data collected so that we can get health data, for instance, on transgender health issues. So it's horrible for transgender folks. But it also does things like it takes the LGBT community out of the hate crime law, so that we would no longer be protected under the hate crime law, or if there is a violent attack against us, there is no data that would be collected on that. And we have great concerns that by redefining sex so narrowly, it also begins to erode hard-won protections for all women and all girls. And so be on the lookout for this. This is why we call it a mandate to discriminate. We will know probably this next week if we're going to have a big fight over House Bill 1128 or not. So it's a total of 11 bad bills. I do want to just point out that our Democratic colleagues, we do have 7 really good pro-LGBTQ bills. So there are good people trying to do good things for the LGBT community as well.
Jeff, thank you so very much. Sobering, sobering, sobering. And Jeff, can you hang around? Great, great. Karen Davenport, can we turn this over to you?
Thank you, Becky. Thank you so much, Jeff. We're going to have Jasmine Clark share some information with us, and I think most of you probably, well, we've been with Jasmine for a couple of years, so many of us know a lot about her. And Jasmine wears many hats. She's the mom of 2. She's a lecturer. She's a state representative. She has followed her love of science in every activity sort of she's taken part in as her adult life, in terms of her work at Emory, and also her decision to run for a state representative position. Her platform is basically bringing a science voice to legislating in Georgia. And that is so much needed, just from a little bit we've heard today that is so anti-science. Jasmine sort of follows many perspectives in her life that are focused on the quote by Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you say, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Jasmine, I'm going to turn the mic over to you so you can share with us a little bit more as to what is going on from your experience in this year's General Assembly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, always, to Necessary Trouble for having me and for all of your support. I also want to thank Jeff Graham for that legislative update that he just gave. A lot of the things that he mentioned are things that we are tracking as well. And so what I want to do is kind of start with things that have happened. Then I'm going to move into things that are moving and could happen. And then I want to end with some positive notes, some things that at least for now feel like wins for us. Generally speaking, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because I am in the House of Representatives. The House cranks out about half as many crazy, insane bills as the Senate does. Now, numbers wise, we crank out more bills, but the bad ones seem to always come from the Senate. But there were some House ones that we've also had to push back on. One of those House bills was actually a resolution. It was House Resolution 1019. House Resolution 1019 was basically campaign fodder for Donald Trump. It condemned Biden's handling of the border and uplifted Trump as some type of savior for the border. It was loony. It was Looney Tunes, honestly. But we did have to vote on that. And the reason why I bring that up is because it was clear that this was going to be used for campaigning for those who consider themselves MAGA Republicans. And also, it is clear that it will be used to attack Democrats and call us weak on border security. So, just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. I did speak against that bill because I just thought it was not a great bill. It's really a bad bill, honestly. And it did nothing. It's a resolution. It was an urging resolution. It does not make any laws. It does not empower anyone. It doesn't do anything. It's just words on paper. Another bill that I spoke out against in this last week was House Bill 576. House Bill 576 is a bill that is in line with a lot of the anti-vax bills that we've been seeing. And this bill had to do with vaccines and transplants. And the truth of the matter is, when with the transplant registry, there's a lot that goes into the transplant registry and who can get transplants and who might not get a transplant, or as they're waiting for a transplant, how long you're on the list. But that bill took one tool away from doctors, and the reason why I spoke out against it is because, number one, it was just meant to undermine public health. And we're seeing across the country how we're starting to see diseases and sporadic outbreaks of diseases that we had under control for decades. Like now we're seeing measles outbreaks in places and things like that. When we push for these anti-vax policies, yeah, they might say it's just about COVID, but it's undermining people's trust in vaccines, period. And so I spoke out against that bill. I also had an opportunity to speak in favor of a couple of bills. One of those bills was House Bill 1037. This bill was brought by Lauren Daniel. And ironically, she believes that she is the champion for maternal mortality. Now, this comes off the heels of years of Democrats trying to push for bills to address maternal mortality, and weeks of Democrats going to the well, Democrats holding press conferences, Democrats holding hearings. We were doing everything to keep this conversation at the forefront and basically say, Republicans, you should play a role in addressing maternal mortality. And so House Bill 1037 allows for there to be a maternal and infant mortality commission. Now, the Department of Public Health already had the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, the MMRC. They released their report in 2022, and they will do a yearly report. So there was some concerns about this being duplicative. But one of the differences is the focus really on perinatal care. And while it probably has the potential to be duplicative, I think whomever sits on that commission is going to really make the difference. So one of the things that I asked for in my well speech for this commission was, number one, we need to make sure that Black women are on this commission. You know why? Because Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related or pregnancy-caused deaths. We need to have mental health care specialists or perinatal mental health care specialists on there. You know why? Because mental health was one of the top 6 reasons for maternal mortality. But when we start talking about what we need to do to prevent these deaths, there's never seems to be a mental health specialist in the room. And so I really want to see them on the commission. And the third group that I really feel should be on this commission are people who have had babies in the state of Georgia, so they can tell their story from the perspective of the patient. We make sure that the doctors are on there. We make sure that the hospital administrators are on there. What about the voice of the people who are impacted the most by the policies that we implement? Their voice needs to be on this commission as well. So that's what I've asked for. Of course, I can ask until I'm blue in the face. We won't know who's on the commission until it's passed, signed by the governor, and then the commission is assigned. But I do hope that they will listen. A second bill that I had the pleasure of speaking in favor of in this last week was House Bill 1010. So in the previous legislative session, much to the surprise of many, and with a lot of consideration as to why I was doing it, I voted against the bill that provided 3 weeks of paid leave for state employees. Not because I don't want paid leave for state employees. The gold standard for paid leave, what federal employees get and what is considered the gold standard, is 12 weeks. 3 weeks of paid leave was better than 0. And yes, I admit that. But at 3 weeks, people are still recovering. You cannot get childcare yet. It was a big gap. And I felt like we needed more. So I was happy to speak in favor of House Bill 1010, which moves that needle to 6 weeks of paid leave. It's still not at the gold standard, but it at least aligns much more closely to actually recovering from pregnancy, although some people still are very much recovering even after 6 weeks. It also takes into account that most child care centers will not take infants younger than 6 weeks old. So this allows for someone to be paid until, if they have to go back to work, they can now enroll their child into a child care facility. So this is something that is a good thing, although I am holding out hope that we're moving in the right direction and we will get to that 12 weeks eventually. So I did speak in favor and vote in favor of that. So that's kind of like what has happened. A few things I want to put on you all's radar to be on the lookout for that is moving. Jeff named a couple of them, so I won't name those. But for those of you who are really concerned about common sense gun laws and things like that, none of those are getting hearings. Safe storage is something that is championed by both sides of the aisle. It's bipartisan. But safe storage is now something that should get a hearing, but it's not. But what is getting a hearing is a bill, House Bill 1018 is moving, that removes the banking code for firearms. So banks are able to track, firearm sales. And the original reason for this was basically to be able to flag if something might be like terrorism or terroristic activity. If a person is buying a stockpile of a huge number of semi-automatic rifles, that would have been coded, and that could give good information about who we need to be on the lookout for. They want to remove that. And it takes away some transparency and honestly makes us a lot less safe. A second bill that is coming from the Senate is the guns and ammo tax holiday. This is a bill that would basically give us a tax-free day to buy your guns and ammo, similar to back in the day, we used to have a tax-free day to buy school clothes. Like that's what we used to have a tax-free day for. But now they want a gun tax holiday. That's Senate Bill 344. We are going to definitely push back against this. We have seen an uptick in gun violence across our state. A lot of our communities do not feel safe. This does not make us safer as a state. Just a couple more bills to be on the lookout for. There is a bill that is just straight up racist, xenophobic, and unconstitutional, but they're pushing it anyway. That's House Bill 1093. House Bill 1093 makes it to where certain people from certain countries are not allowed to buy agricultural land. Some of those countries include China, Venezuela. I can't remember the whole list of countries. But it doesn't, literally, if you are from there, you're no longer allowed, like, you're no longer able to purchase land. And yeah, that does not pass constitutional muster, but it is still moving through the legislature despite that. And it is something that we are paying attention to. And then the last thing I'll talk about is Senate Bill 362. No, not Senate Bill 362. Whoa. I think it's House Bill 575. Yeah, I will jump into one last bill, and the reason why I want to jump into this bill is because we're going to talk with Susie Greenberg later. House Bill 575, I believe, is the child labor law bill. I'm pretty sure that's it. House Bill 575 is a bill that would remove the requirement to verify age for people to work. And it is basically rolling back child labor protections. This is a bill being pushed by Deborah Silcox. It is insane to me. And that is one that I really think that people should jump on and say, hey, we have to stop this. This is crazy. And also, because she is vulnerable, put her on notice that bills like this do not have a place in our state. And so I'll stop there because I know we have to, but I just want to give two things. Sorry, no, I'm wrong. 501, not 575, 501. That was the child labor law bill. Sorry, y'all. But I just want to say we had two wins, House Bill 370 and House Bill 501. So the child labor law was recommitted to their committees. That's basically like it was moving and then they pumped the brakes on it a little bit. That doesn't mean they won't still move. But especially House Bill 501. House Bill 501 is the child labor law. Please, please, please let people know you do not want this bill. All right. And with that, I'm going to mute because my dog is going crazy.
Thank you so much, Jasmine and Jeff. Just quick, because we're a little bit behind time, because we always have so much great information at our meetings. Jasmine and Jeff mentioned several pieces of legislation that we need to keep our eye on. In the chat, Jeff sort of outlined some of these things are against the law, but lawsuits are filed against some of these possible legislative acts, and the courts have an uneven track record of overturning them, and then it also takes time for them to deal with it. Joyce really wanted to know about our previously created email distribution list, and just to remind everyone, Becky will send those out after the meeting. Besides emailing and indicating our support or aghast at some of these bills, I don't know if Jeff or Jasmine have any other suggestions of things that we can do, because we're a pretty powerful group. We are bugging and harassing people. So I don't know if you have any additional suggestions for how we can combat some of these ludicrous suggested laws.
I think y'all's voices really do matter. When you come to the Capitol, if you have the capacity to, and speak against some of these bills, or even if you come and pull us out to the ropes and speak against some of these bills, especially a bill like House Bill 501. Like, this is being sponsored by someone who is in a very vulnerable seat. And I think it's okay to remind her of that. Now I'm 100% team Susie, so I'm okay with her making these missteps, and we're going to call her out for these missteps anyway. But I would love to get her out of that seat, as well as stop this really bad law, because it is just a bad law in general. So one of the things I would say is coming up and just reminding them, that this is an election year, and the things that you are pushing forward will affect your ability to get reelected. And I don't think she thought this through when she thought child labor laws would be the best way to win an election in 2024. But here we are.
Yeah, and I equally agree. Your voices can be incredibly powerful. And Becky, the way I would answer that is, stay tuned. I tend to look at LGBTQ issues, and the two worst bills in my mind are Senate Bill 180, which is the RFRA bill, and House Bill 1128. Now, there is still a chance that we will be successful in keeping those bottled up in committee. So there's really nothing to be done at this point in time. But if either or both of those bills do cross over, I think that they, for this audience, could be two of the worst, because they do open the doors to discrimination very broadly to lots of groups of people in Georgia.
And can I just add one thing really quick? It takes 3 days for a bill, like at minimum, it takes 3 days for a bill to go from 3 legislative days for a bill to go from introduction, first read, to technically getting voted on the floor. So 3 days is all we have for bills that they want to move and that they will fast track. That said, we only have 5 legislative days until crossover day. And then crossover day is the day where we will be there for hours, and things can get fast track, where it's one day, but it can feel like multiple days, because they hold committee meetings multiple times a day and rules multiple times a day. So I say all that to say that we're getting close to crunch time. So to Jeff's point, I really hope House Bill 1128 and some of these other really bad anti-LGBTQ bills stay stuck in committee. But if they don't, we really, really need y'all's voices, because these bills are, they're horrid. They're absolutely horrid. Y'all's voices really do play a major role in stopping a lot of these bad things from happening.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all of the information that you have shared with us to motivate and move us towards more action. Now we're going to shift gears just a little bit, leaving the Georgia Assembly and focusing on the upcoming elections. And we're going to hear from our 2 troubler candidates. First, Jasmine is going to speak with us again, but this time about her candidacy. And then from Susie Greenberg, who is going to speak about her candidacy. Jasmine?
All right, so me again. So I am running once again in one of the most competitive districts in the state. And at this point, I should just put that on a t-shirt, because every single time they have an opportunity to go after my seat, they take it. So recently, in the last redistricting that we had during special session, despite my district not being anywhere near any of the areas that the judge told them to change or to fix, they still made their way up 85 north and came into my district and moved some lines around. The bad news is it did make my district very, very, very it made it more competitive. And it's still very, very winnable. It is right now considered a Joe Biden 53% district, which probably doesn't sound that bad. But it is also a Stacey Abrams 48% district. So with the way that things are going now, and in Georgia, we might not be the state that's as sexy to, the politicos as it was in the last election, since we only have the presidential at the top of the ticket and some congressional races, but we don't have a Senate race. We don't have a governor's race. So a lot of the attention that we got in previous elections, we might not get this year. So that said, boots on the ground and getting out the vote is going to fall on us, like at the state level. And so given the numbers, the district is likely going to be at that 51-52% in this election, except for there are whenever you all help me, and I'm just going to be really honest, whenever Necessary Trouble and others help me with canvassing, phone banking, postcards, everything that you all do, we beat the odds. Last year, or the last election, I was supposed to just eke over the finish line, barely, and it was anyone's game. I could have either won by a little bit or lost by a little bit. We won by way more than every single predictor said we would win by. And so I believe that we can do that again in 2024. I see a question about my contender. I have a Republican opponent. Her name is Elvia Davila. She is a Latina woman who has not lived in the district long, even if she lives here at all, who knows? But she has the backing of several House Republicans so far, and just generally speaking, the governor promised whomever did vote for, or whoever did run against me in this race, he would put $250,000 toward their campaign. I know it's insane. But as far as a Democrat, so far, no other Democrat has announced that they will run or declared that they will run, but there has been some talks that there might be a last minute primary announcement for me, not because of anything that I've done. It's just a person that's like, hey, I want to run for office, and why not state house? So those are some of the things that I'm dealing with. And that's why I really appreciate, again, everything that Necessary Trouble has done. I have already had the opportunity to meet with some of you all about what we can do starting even now. So I'm very excited just about all of y'all's support. Y'all have been supporting me since my very first election, the election where I won by 250 votes. And so you all are a testament to what can happen when you have that support, when you have people willing to knock doors for you and postcard for you and just support you in all of the ways that you all can. So I appreciate that. And I look forward to kicking butt this year as well. And I know I will be able to attribute a lot of my success to the things that you all do to support.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Naomi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clark. My name is Naomi Bach. I've been participating in Necessary Trouble for about a year and know some of you. A few weeks ago, Pam and I had the opportunity to meet with Susie Greenberg. She is a remarkable combination of energy, compassion, integrity, and competence. She is an attorney, so she'll have an easier road to comprehending the legalese of the state legislature functioning, which can be a challenge for some of us in the introductory phase. She has worked with Planned Parenthood and others in the arena of supporting reproductive rights, with Moms Demand Action and others on gun safety, and she supports access to quality health care for all Georgians, including Medicaid expansion. She is responsive to people with differing points of view. I'm just really pleased that Necessary Trouble has chosen to support her campaign for the House in District 53. And I'll turn this over to Susie now. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I just want to make sure, can everyone hear me? So I'm reading, okay, great. And thank you so much for picking up my campaign for State House District 53. which is parts of Buckhead, Sandy Springs, and Roswell. I know many of you worked in 2022 to get Kelly Kaufman elected in this district. Some of you are familiar with the demographics, but I thought I would tell you a little bit about me and about the district for background. I'm not going to get so into Deborah Silcox, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask. My husband, Mark, and I moved to Georgia 30 years ago. We arrived in 1994 for his medical fellowship in pediatric ophthalmology, and we never left. We quickly made Atlanta our home, and we began to grow roots in the community for our family of 6. I am a practicing attorney, and when I arrived here, I worked long distance for a while through the snail mail, and took the Georgia bar in 1996 when it was apparent that we were staying. We have 4 amazing children who went to public and private schools, and our community formed around them. They made it very easy. I have been an advocate and a problem solver my entire life. My advocacy started at an early age, and some of you might remember the Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute Saturday morning cartoon initiative, which was an initiative to try and do pollution awareness on Saturday mornings. Anyway, I was that kid who watched the cartoons and made "Don't pollute" signs for the neighborhood all Saturday morning, and then spent the entire week putting them up in the neighborhoods. And then I was also that kid who hosted backyard carnivals in conjunction with the Jerry Lewis Muscular Dystrophy Telethon every Labor Day weekend. So I've had a real desire to repair the world, and it started at a very early age for me. I am a problem solver, first out of necessity. I'm the oldest child in my family, a latchkey kid who took care of my family after school and on weekends because my parents were working or they were caring for very sick grandparents. And then as a parent myself to 4 incredibly energetic kids who presented unique needs, including LGBTQ identities, and moved in 4 different directions at all times. As an attorney and a litigator, I'm literally trained to find solutions in law and best interests for clients. And now as a community advocate for the last 30 years or so, I've parlayed my legal training and social justice passion into community advocacy. And wouldn't you know it, my passions align exactly where my opponent has deficiencies. I thought I would tell you a little bit about what I've done in the community here in Georgia for the last 30 years. And let's start with elevating women, children, and families in society. I do understand challenges that the underserved face in Georgia. Currently, I'm a court-appointed special advocate for foster children. And I have been working with foster children for over 8 years, representing their best interests in schools, in their family situations, and in the court systems. I have worked with refugee families for a number of years through Temple Sinai, New American Pathways, and Refugees Women Network. And for 7 years, I volunteered as a college counselor for first-generation students through the Sandy Springs Education Force. Each of these experiences provided unique insights into poverty, food insecurity, domestic challenges, affordable housing, drug addiction, and education, just to name a few. I have been a pro-choice advocate my entire life, first starting as an escort for patients at a women's clinic in the Chicago area. But I have served many positions, large and small, over the years. I am former board member of Planned Parenthood Southeast and currently vice president of advocacy for a National Council of Jewish Women Atlanta. And if you don't know NCJW, it is one of the nation's leaders in advocating for reproductive freedoms across the country. I support common sense gun laws. The impact of violence with guns is personal for me and my family. My son was the victim of an armed robbery in 2015, and that event informs everything I do and my entire commitment to common sense gun laws. He is okay. His mama would like to see battlefield weapons off the streets. I advocate for safe storage, required background checks, and additional resources for mental health and de-escalation efforts. In honor of my children, I am involved in the grassroots organizations like Moms Demand Action, Everytown, and the Georgia Majority for Gun Safety. As the wife of a physician and a breast cancer survivor myself, I have insight into the broken healthcare system and support Medicaid expansion. And over the years, our community supported me and my family in so many ways. Right now, showing up for my community looks like running for office. I'm running for Georgia State House because I'm deeply concerned that Georgia is sliding backward. I was asked to run for this seat by the Democratic state leaders, and I'm stepping up to run for my hardworking community. And right now, the stakes are too high for us to sit back and wait for someone else to get the job done. I'm running because Republican Deborah Silcox is not using the power she has to improve the quality of our lives. Since she took office in 2016, we have a broken healthcare system, an abortion ban that criminalizes patients and doctors, unchecked gun violence, and underfunded public education. Our families deserve someone who has the courage to stand up for us, especially when it's not easy. And I pledge to stand up, to speak up, and to show up as a state rep, just as I have done as an advocate for the last 30 years. Some of you know House District 53, and some of this information might be new to you, but it is a very gerrymandered district. It is over 22 miles long from north to south, and it was created for Deborah Silcox to regain a seat she lost in 2020 to pro-choice candidate Shay Roberts. The district is 77% white, 13% African-American, 4% Hispanic and Asian each. It is also the most flippable seat in Georgia. Why? We can flip this seat because President Biden won it, Senators Warnock and Senator Ossoff won it. Also, Deb won this seat by just less than 1,500 votes in a district that was gerrymandered just for her. So we can win this with some smart strategy, and our campaign is strong. Since I entered the race in August, we have raised over $290,000. We have over $265,000 in the bank now. These funds demonstrate the viability of this campaign. I have been endorsed by the leaders of the Democratic caucus individually, and on Friday, I learned that the Georgia Democratic Party has endorsed me months earlier than expected. We have no known Democratic opponent in the primary. And every day, this campaign grows momentum. So I am happy to take questions. I just wanted to touch on a few things about me and the demographics of the district, but you may have other concerns. Okay, in the chat, let's see where they are.
Looks like we're just very happy that you're running.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you stepping up to serve our community and moving Georgia forward.
Hey, Karen, I had a question for Susie. How could you describe something for us about your campaign and how you're going to be working with volunteers and what kind of work we could do to help you?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So we have a win number of about just shy of 16,000, and we have to hit a universe of 21,000 people. We have data from 2022 that shows areas that we need to canvass heavily. They're well known in Sandy Springs. And I do need help with canvassing, postcard writing, phone banking, fundraising, and getting my name out. So Deborah Silcox is an experienced and veteran politician. She's been in the game for a long time. Her name is very recognized and mine is not. Even if you are just talking to people and you drop my name and say, hey, have you heard about that great candidate in House District 53? That would be so beneficial because we are working from a disadvantage on name recognition. I thank you for your donation, Lou. Lou, you were at my house in 2022 dropping off Kelly Kaufman signs. I don't know if you remember, but in terms of strategy, we have raised a lot of money and we're very lucky that we have a very strong start. We'll have a mail campaign, which will which will hit some of the homes we cannot canvass. This district is very long and narrow, as I mentioned, 22 miles long, but there are areas specifically around the governor's mansion in this district that are gated and we will not have access. And so we have to hit those people through digital and mail. And that's why I had to raise so much money so fast to show viability and because those are serious expenses. As I mentioned, we know where we had a deficit in 2022 in canvassing, where we will have a volunteer corps, but we will also have to have some paid canvassers. What I didn't mention to you is for many years, I was the legislative advocacy coordinator for Jewish Democratic Women's Salon, which is over 2,000 members. And hopefully we will have some of their members canvassing with us also and Necessary Trouble. And we should hopefully pick up some other groups and get a lot of this canvassing done.
Okay, Susie, there's two other questions.
Oh.
One, I have a question. Have you outlined with some of your strategies having town halls in different locations and churches up and down your whole district?
So yes, I would so greatly appreciate being introduced to anyone in your network that you feel would be helpful in this district. In particular, church leaders. I don't have a natural inroad there. And I would like to meet church leaders in Roswell, in Sandy Springs, and in Buckhead. What was the other part of the question? Meeting
Oh,
people and
well, no, like, are you planning town halls in
oh
different?
yes. So we worked really hard through January 31st to raise the money that we raised. And now we're planning a listening tour, which will have different locations in Roswell, in Sandy Springs, and in Buckhead.
Mhm.
And they will be in public homes, no, in public places, private homes, and hopefully community centers like churches or similar.
And there was another question about, can you give an outline of the Republican versus Democratic statistics in your district?
So the best example is Deborah Silcox and Kelly Kaufman 2022. Kelly lost by 1,496 votes, which was roughly a 52-48 split. That being said, Stacey Abrams lost by 10 full points. But Joe Biden won by 10 points, 55, a little more than 54, 46. So this district is considered a solid 50-50 district, which means we will win by hundreds of votes, not thousands of votes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Will you be using texting throughout your campaign as well, reminding people about you?
We definitely plan to do text banking, although that program hasn't been started yet. But it's in the text banking, phone banking, canvassing, digital mail, and meeting people in person.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jasmine and Susie, so much for stepping up. And
Thank you. So nice, and thank you everyone for your vote of
Thank you.
confidence.
just as a couple of reminders, Jasmine cannot receive funds during the legislative session, but Susie's website, Karen McGowan has put it in the chat, and Necessary Trouble will have a fundraiser for both candidates after the Georgia legislative session. And as we will have details plus opportunities to volunteer, they will be coming out and they'll be available at the March meeting. I'm going to thank you both so much for joining us today. And again, thank you for serving us as citizens in Georgia to help move our state forward. I'm going to turn this over to Pam Wouche, who's going to introduce the reports of troubler work.
And actually, I'm going to jump in. Pam and I agreed that I'm going to jump in before she does the Troubler team sports part of the updates. And I have to just say that it makes me so proud that our Troubler House candidates are Representative Dr. Jasmine Clark and Susie Greenberg. I think they are both phenomenal, absolutely stellar. And so just great gratitude to both of them for their service. Jasmine, it's fine for you to drop off. Thank you for doing double duty today.
Thank you all so much. Always happy to join you all whenever you all want to hear about what's going on at the Capitol. And I look forward to seeing some of you and speaking with many of you over the next few weeks. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you both. Thank you both. And thank you also to Jessica Weinstein, who is here with us, who is actually Susie's campaign manager. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from her over the course of this election season. But Jessica, thank you for being here and thank you for helping Susie win. And Karen Davenport.
For having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And Karen Davenport, thank you for all the facilitation. And as Karen mentioned, just to kind of underline, we're a lot of the March meeting, we have created kind of team leads for each campaign in key areas like canvassing and phone banking and postcarding and all the others and fundraising. And we will be recruiting hard and heavy for those at the March meeting. So we expect to get started with our volunteer work soon after that and hope to see all of you on that meeting. I also wanted, before we kind of transition to hearing from all the Troubler work groups, I wanted to make pitches for help for in a couple of areas. And the first is some lovely news, which is, in addition to our March meeting, we're going to have an in-person Troubler picnic in April. And it will be by then beautiful enough to be outside. And for those who are new Troublers, we will be able to meet you in person. And for those of us who haven't seen each other in person in a really long time, we'll be able to do that. And so that's going to be April 7th, 1 to 5. And I hope that you will save the date. We are really, really looking forward to it. And we would love some help putting that together. And so if anybody is willing to help with some of the coordinating and logistics of that, if you would please put your name in the chat and put the word picnic next to it, we would be extremely, extremely grateful. That's one general Troubler related thing. And the other area where we need some help is also some good news. And let me share my screen for this, which is we are about to have swag. And we are very excited. These are just mock-ups right now, but they will be coming soon. And we need a little bit of help with coordinating the sales, and it's a kind of a big job. And if we could put a little bit of a team together to do that, it would be a huge help. It needs to be someone who is fairly organized. It would be helpful if you live near me and Pat, which is near Toco Hill, since we'll probably distribute them out of here. And so if anybody is willing to help with, either if anybody is willing to help with t-shirts, if you would put your name in the chat with t-shirts, I would be, and Pam, yes, we will also be ordering the V-neck women's sizes. We won't be able to get them in blue, but they will be available in black. And if anybody's willing to help, we would be hugely, hugely, hugely grateful. So if you would put your name in the chat with the word t-shirt, or if you're willing to help on the picnic, your name in the chat with the word picnic. And on that note, I'm going to turn this back to Pam Wishay. Thank you, Joyce Thomas, for picnic and swag. God, I love new troublers. Thank you, Joyce. That would be just fantastic. And let me turn this back over to Pam Wishay for to talk about top troubler work groups.
I love the sense of troubler sports. What a great month. Anyway, so the first sport is a team that I'd like to personally introduce, which is a project that anyone that was part of the meeting last month realized that there was a project that had a pretty quick start date and a pretty quick finish date that was in the voter protection area. And so in that, there were two people here, who were not here today, who were really instrumental in that. One of them was Leslie High, who happens to be in Morocco right now, but coordinated the volunteer callers from Necessary Trouble. And the other was Kim Allen, who was at that time the interim voter protection director for the DPG. And she was doing that out of Texas. And many of you might remember her from 2020, when in fact she was working with Syra Draper around voter protection and the hotline and such there. So anyway, that was one thing there. Kim's co-lead in that was Liz Barrett, who is here with us today. And she was the regional director of voter protection in 2022, and now is on board full-time as the deputy voter protection director for DPG, and actually began working on that even before she was official on the 1st of February on this particular project. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Liz to talk about, why this project was so important, what it was, what its success was, and how the Democratic Party is now investing in voter protection in Georgia, and how we can help. With that, we'll hear from Liz first, and then after that, Robert Brown, who is AKA Brown, and one of about 10 troublers who really made these phenomenal calls over a very, very short period of time. So I will lead off with Liz, and if you would turn to Brown, and then after that, we will put the slide back up that will show the speakers for the various team leads and the reports that they will give. So Liz.
Thank you so much, Pam. And thank you to the amazing people on this call who do the work, who are on the ground, rolling up their sleeve, doing the work. This is where the rubber meets the road. And that's saying something, because there's a lot of work that gets done that you all are involved in. And I see names of people who've signed up to be poll watchers. I see Jane Seward, who has been really, really key in these past couple of weeks. And so I just want to say a heartfelt thanks. And, here we go for a really busy cycle. And this kind of responsiveness and getting the job done is what it is all about. So as Pam explained, I've been doing voter protection work here since about 2019, 2020. I've been involved in various organizations, Fair Fight, DPG, CIRA, SARA, in the recount, and now have joined as Deputy Director over Election Administration Oversight. And we know that certification and things like that are going to be big issues and will be needing to be shored up. But always what we do is the nuts and bolts and big numbers, reaching out to volunteers en masse, reaching out to folks to be poll watchers, right? And that means making phone calls, sending texts, manning the emails. I mean, it's very complex. And you all jumped in where we know that DPG is standing up their full-time year-round voter protection department. Once again, there is a big commitment with the new executive director to voter protection. But that's happening in real time, and we're still doing the work in real time. And so how to get that bump of volume done, you all came through amazingly. We called over 600 folks who had been recent volunteers as poll watchers, 600 folks. And that was with a script, that was with texting, it was complex. And right now, what we're standing up, I wanted to give you some stats. We're doing a capsule poll watching program. We've got 12 priority counties. We have credentialed right now 115 poll watchers for just early voting, okay? And that is going to cover 300 shifts, right? That's a lot, just for the first week of early voting. Then election day, we've got 188 volunteers recruited to serve, right? Super amazing. So this is all with one person staff, me. And Kim and I have been working together. I worked with Kim in the past, and as you all know, I don't know what vitamins she's taking, but boy, we all need them because she just does an amazing amount of work and has been heading this up. So and again, I want to say in particular over the past couple of weeks, and just specifically Jane Seward has been really key in helping with us in just, lots of hands-on activity with poll watcher volunteers. So tremendous thanks. We know where we're going. We've got 3 cycles, right? We've got the March presidential primary, we've got the May primary, and we've got November, and we're going to keep scaling up and up to make sure that every vote is cast and every ballot is counted. So let me share with you that the new director of voter protection will be starting this week. She's coming from Massachusetts. So there's going to be, just imagine if you walked into Georgia and you never voted in Georgia, you don't know what a poll pad is per se. I mean, yes, there are things that are standardized, but there's a big curve. And so she will be leading the way, helping us ramp up with staffing. We've got numerous positions on the DPG website for voter protection. So the commitment is very real to this department, and the understanding of how important it is very real. So I want to say thank you sincerely. This is Kim's birthday weekend. So I am covering for her and pinching in, and I'm always available. I'll put my contact information in the chat. And I know that you folks you're so wonderfully organized, which I really appreciate the structure and the clarity. So I know there's always somebody that you could reach out and get a referral or get contact information. Person who's coming is Cecilia Ungarte Baldwin. And I'm going to put my contact number information in the chat. And I'm very open to any questions or comments before we pass it on to Robert.
One thing I wondered whether, in fact, Liz, you might mention why it is that it was really important to move on these volunteers, on poll watchers, even for the presidential primary and everything around the software and such.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So in the municipal cycle, back in November, what we were finding out through the field in these, these myriad of races, right, with many different ballots, right? There's a lot of complexity to the municipal races because you really get down to a lot of races and variation. And the Secretary of State is updating their Jarvis system. There's new equipment that's being deployed. And what we realized in the municipals is there were issues around the system and voter information, voter file information, ballots, when people weren't getting the correct ballot. There was just a myriad of issues. And um, so there was redistricting issues, there was mapping issues, there was a lot of issues. And what we came away with at the end of that cycle was still more questions. And so even some of the best folks that we have talked to who are experts in this area, there's still some lack of transparency and understanding. Is it happening at a local, what portion or aspect is happening at the local election office, right? At the county level, right? What is happening at a vendor? Secretary of State uses different vendors. What's happening at event with vendors, right? Vendor uploading certain files for voter information, right? What's happening with new equipment? So we very much are focusing for the presidential the first week of early voting, because we believe that the systemic issues will surface very quickly within the first week. It's typically what's going to happen. So I'm talking to you folks as experts in the field, right? We are, this is kind of inside, an inside perspective, right, of our concern about some of the systemic issues. For us to be able to triage voter protection access issues and every ballot counting issues, we need to understand what's actually happening at the polling places, right? Is it an issue with the vendor file? Is it an issue with new equipment? What is it the poll workers are not, understanding what the information is? So in order to triage what's happening, we need to better understand and be able to dissect and create a schematic of what's happening in our polling places. So long way to say this presidential race, which is going to be much more simple, right? It's not going to be lots of little races, right? Everybody gets to vote. Doesn't matter what district you're in, right? Because we all live in Georgia. So even though there's going to be some things that are more, it takes away some of the variability. And I think we'll let the system issues kind of stand out even, more starkly as they arise. It will be terrific if we see fast improvements. Absolutely. But one of the key reasons why the presidential and why we focused on the first week is we really want to lean in and have eyes and ears on the ground to try to understand better what's happening with our election system here in Georgia.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you for all that, and please extend to Kim as well there. You guys were so great and so responsive that it was just a joy to work with you.
Thank you, Pam and Becky, and all the folks who I don't know if I'm seeing Martha, but I just want to say it is very heartfelt for us. We know that this work takes a village, and we're so glad that to have that responsiveness is very unusual and very much appreciated and valued. Thank you. I'm going to put my information in the chat, and if anybody has any other questions, I'll stay around for about 10 more minutes. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
Okay.
And Brown, if you would like to just talk about what was your experience making these calls?
Okay, I'm going to be fast. I just want to say that the people that were working with me were the Berries. Jane was mentioned, Carl Sachs, Jane Hudson, Robin Shahar, Joanne Witt, Jennifer Conwiller, Daryl, Margaret Heyman, Viola Westbrook, and Robin Mayer. So I've been doing this for a long time, and it is getting to be so much fun. I mean, one of the things about Necessary Trouble is as we evolve all the systems in place, take away all the worries. I mean, just I had all the tools I needed, and I had great support from Leslie and Kim, and people were happy to hear from me. I mean, that's a new thing for me. You know, like I would call, they would call me back. Sometimes a couple of weeks later, it just was a joy to do it. And because people were so responsive, I mean, some people even answered the call the first time, you know, like that doesn't happen with cell phones, but they were doing it. So it was really fast. I think I had 50 names on my list, and I was able to get it done in 2 evenings. So this was a really enjoyable experience. So thank you.
Thanks, Brown. Just to say that there will be lots more experiences like this coming up in this year. So
There's
everyone,
nowhere to hide.
nowhere to hide. Exactly, exactly. And now I think we'll just kick off with the rest of the team reports, more team sports. And I think the next one is also election oriented with Pam Woodley, and then we'll go down the line.
Yes, yes, so reporting on the Fighting 50, this is becoming another thing that the DPG is relying on Necessary Trouble for. So I've been busy recruiting new members because we need a lot of people to help with this going forward. What we are trying to do with the Fighting 50 is find Democrats to run for the Georgia House in red districts. And we call it the Fighting 50 because we had a goal of getting 50 people. It's really the Fighting 84. There are really 84 Georgia House seats that are in red districts, which we define as districts where Biden got less than 40% of the vote, and where the Republican incumbent is very rarely challenged. So that is our whole goal, is to make sure that every one of these people is challenged, that we have good representatives of our values on the ballot, so that 30 or 40% of the district who are Democrats have someone to vote for. It brings them to the polls to help out with the higher level races. So lots of really important reasons to do it. So qualifying is the first week of March. So everyone that we have committed or have recruited is going to commit then or not. We will find out. We've got 46 people. We are hoping we recruited, but really only 25 of them are not totally solid. We're waiting for them to see if they show up for qualifying. And next slide would be good. So what we've learned a lot this year, and I know a lot of you were involved early on with texting with Pat. We eventually signed up with the automatic texting system. So that's why you hadn't been doing it after those first few weeks. So basically, yeah, we send out mass texts of Democrats. The ones that reply positively, we try to call personally. And Marianne Myers and Carolyn Gorman were big helps with that. It's a very small team though. And next, in 2 years, when we're doing this again, I'd like it to be a much bigger team, because what we've learned is that you really have to stay in close personal touch with these people, because we're asking a lot of them. We're asking them to run a race that they will most likely lose. To ask their friends for money when they will most likely lose. So and they have to drive to Atlanta, no matter how far away they are. They have to drive to Atlanta to pay their $400 filing fee and qualify. So it's a big ask. And again, these are lonely Democrats in red areas. So we need enough people to really stay in touch with all these recruits. I think we lost a lot this year by just not maintaining that personal contact. they're constantly changing their status, dropping in, dropping out. Someone has health problems. We get 2 candidates in one district, and we have to negotiate between the 2 of them. So we've got to do a lot of better tracking status. And we do have Jake Field from the DPG works very closely with us. And we need to continue that, because in a few situations we found we were sending texts to districts where there was a Democratic incumbent already, and that did not go over well. There was some, just due to redistricting, there was a lot of confusion this year that we shouldn't have. And I hope that we will be able to solidify the help our candidates can get better. What kind of training will be available for them? What kind of PAC money can they get to help offset some of these expenses? So, but it has been a lot of fun, met a lot of really interesting people, and then we're going to meet them all in person when they come up to qualify. There's going to be a party Sunday night. So I hope this will be an ongoing effort, and I will be asking for volunteers to help with it later on. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a quote from one of the guys. He's running for House District 1, way up in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, right under Chattanooga. And he sent this to the whole group yesterday, and I just thought it was kind of a cool quote. Did you eat?
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Did you eat?
Did you eat? I'll go out with you in a minute. Let me get this going. Pam.
Oh.
Hi, Pam. Can I share my screen?
Certainly. Mhm.
Okay, let's see. This is host disabled participant screen share. Let me see here. Okay. So there's just a few things that I want to share that's going on right now. Oh. Can you see my screen? It says,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
So we have a lot of things going on in the DeKalb Democratic Party. I want to share 3 things. The sign that you see on the screen, we have these in 2 formats. If you would like a sign like this, which is a sign you can put in your yard or in front of your neighborhood, that outlines all the important voting dates, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat, and you can email me and say, I like, a large vote sign. I also have these cards in very small, like they're like little signature cards, and they really work well to pass them out at church or when you're at the gym or any place. And when they're small, like one side says the important 2024 voting dates, and then on the back it has the voting information where people can check their registration. So again, if you would email me, I'll put my email in the chat, and tell me what you would like and how many, I will make sure they're delivered to you. The second thing, we are having a blue ballot reception, and this is our major fundraiser for this year to do all the things that we do in the DeKalb Dems to help fight misinformation and run off tons of things and help get the word out to people and have kitchen talks and all sorts of things. So I encourage you to go on the DeKalb Dems website. We'd love for people to attend and make any kind of contribution you can. The next issue is we are going to be having candidate forums, and we will have candidate forums for all of the county commissioner district runs, the county CEO, school board districts. If you have any technical skills and would like to volunteer to help with some of the technology for the forums, I think we need moderators for 2 of the events. But again, if you could help in any way with the forums, if you would just email me, that would be really great. And the fourth item is, if you would like a Biden-Harris yard sign, I picked up quite a few this weekend from the DPG. And again, if you put your information in the chat, I have about 40 signs. Of course, I want to give them to troublers first, So if you would like a binded hearing signed, again, just put your name in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I think next up is Aquaria
Hi. Hello, everyone.
with some good
Okay.
news. Yes.
Coming down to the wire. So I'm here to talk about the Necessary Troublers Book Club. We launched last month, and boy, what a vibrant discussion that we had. We had great participation turnout. We talked about First Lady's book, The Light We Carry, which to me is so apropos, particularly of what was discussed today and what we are facing working ahead. We gather lots of skills and tools for our toolbox and toolkits as we move forth in this election season. And in our next book club, drum roll, we are reading in March, Democracy Awakening, Notes on the State of America by Heather Cox Richardson. Our facilitators, co-facilitators, as a matter of fact, we got two. Is Marla Tepper and Manette Messenger. And it was such an outstanding response that we are nearly near capacity. So if you received an email confirmation response from Robin, you are what? Confirmed. If you have emailed and have not yet heard from her, please reach out ASAP, but give us about a day or two to respond back to you. And that is if you sent an email before today. We are definitely going to have to now look at RSVPs, but we are so excited about the response that we have had for the book club, and we look forward to the next book club that's going to happen on March 17th, which is on a Sunday. And one of our very own has opened up their space for us, so we're very excited about that. Details will be forthcoming to those that have confirmed for that as well. And again, that is going to be on March 17th, which is on a Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. And we're looking forward to another lively discussion. And as always, we want to thank Eagle Eye Books for just opening their shop to us and for allowing us to still get a 10% discount. I went over there the other day after an event for work, and I got a discount. And as a matter of fact, I got a book that was signed by the author herself. So I think I snagged a pretty good deal. So please take the time out. Always, you can, if you're not one that likes, to me, I love a hard cover book with just like the pages, but those that love that audio, more than welcome to download there or even get a copy from the library. Rob, is there anything that I may have missed?
No, that's it, Aquaria. Thank you. That's perfect.
Excellent. And I think next up is Jane Stewart, who's going to give our environment report this month.
Right. Thank you, Pam. So our small little environmental group is focusing efforts this year on protecting the Okefenokee. Michael Beach has been working very closely with the Georgia Water Coalition on this important issue. We have bad news on the Okefenokee front for those of you who have seen that reported in the AJC. After receiving more than 70,000 public comments opposing granting a mining permit to Twin Pines, the Georgia EPD granted a draft permit a week ago. There's a public hearing about this on March 5th, and EPD is accepting public comments for 60 days, which I think is not usual after granting permits. So this is called a draft permit. But we all gave 70,000 comments before, is another 70,000 going to make any difference? It's worth trying though. So send comments or attend the meeting in person or virtually if you're interested. This is important, but not as time sensitive as acting to promote passage of House Bill 71. That will protect future mining along Trail Ridge. So this vote, you've heard a lot on legislative updates today. This bill needs to be voted out of committee. It's still in committee, and voted on by the full House by crossover day, Feb 29th. So time is really short on this. As Jasmine said, it's really crunch time. So key action items are, in order of importance, calling or emailing House leadership about House Bill 71. That means the Speaker Pro Temp, Majority Whip, and Majority Leader. 95 House members have signed on to this bill. It's enough to pass the bill. So it needs to get out of committee and get a full House vote. So they should be able to put pressure on the committee to have a vote. Right now, if they voted in committee, it would fail. So the second priority is calling or emailing GOP members of the Natural Resource and Environment Committee who have not yet supported the bill. 10 of the current committee members, 6 Dems and 4 Republicans, have signed on to it. So we need just 3 more of the remaining 12 GOP members to vote yes. And we need Lynn Smith to get this out of committee. The third priority is calling or emailing GOP members of that committee who have supported the bill. There are 4 of those people. We can thank them for their support and ask them to encourage other members of the committee in on the Republican side to vote, and to the chairperson, Lynn Smith, to get it up for a vote. Finally, there's one other thing that's time sensitive, a very concerning environmental bill that's back in the Judiciary Committee. So this was moving, it went to Rules and came back to Judiciary for revision. It passed out of committee in a close, all-partisan 6-5 vote. I contacted Mary Margaret Oliver about this bill to see what she thought would happen, and she said this bill is under the guise of a conservation bill, could drastically change ownership of all the salt marshes in Georgia and restrict access to fishing and hunting in marshes for the public. So we need more no votes on this bill. So we need to call or email GOP members who've supported this bill, as well as 1 Democrat who missed the vote, and encourage them to vote when it comes up for a second vote in the Judiciary Committee. And Mary Margaret, she responded to me by email half an hour after I emailed her, and she said this is what needs to be done. So this bill failed to pass last year in the full House, but they're trying again, so let's let them know. So remember, action's needed right now. We only have 9 days or less. We have 3 or 4 days to act on these bills, including a House vote for House Bill 71. I mean, it's too late for letters or postcards. We need to call or email, or even better, go down to the Capitol. So look for an action alert from Pat early this week on these issues. Thanks, and I'm happy to take any questions if people have any.
Thank you, Jane, for the not so good news, but also for the action items there. Really appreciate that. And then Robin, I think you are next in the
Pam,
line.
can I ask a quick question,
Yes.
Pam?
Oh, certainly.
Hey, Jane, the last bill that you mentioned, the one that's under the guise of conservation for the salt marshes, could you tell us the number of the bill for that, please?
Yeah, 370.
Thank you.
Right now, just 1 second, the salt marshes are owned by the state, and the onus is on the private person to sort of prove ownership going back to when the colony was founded. This is going to change the onus, and the onus would be on the state, and the State Property Commission would only have 180 days to prove ownership or not, and if they haven't done it by that time, the property reverts to the private owner, the person who's made the claim. So it's really a dangerous bill. Thanks.
Wow. Frightening. Any other questions? Okay, then Robin, take it away.
Thanks, Pam.
Mhm.
So a couple of you on this call are involved with me volunteering at the DeKalb County Juvenile Court. It is really a concern that many schools in DeKalb County, in addition to giving kids a suspension or some kind of discipline when they act out or break rules at school, in particular for the Black kids, these kids are also have the police called in and are arrested. And so there is a program that works with kids, and when I say kids, between ages 14 and 17 primarily, 14 and 16 really, who are first offenders, and I'm putting that in quotes because I think if they're not really offenders, they're kids. They've broken some rules at school, but they end up in the criminal justice system. And this program essentially puts them in a program for 60 to 90 days, where we do some rehabilitative stuff with them, and then the whole criminal aspect of this is wiped off their record. So their record is completely clean. We need more hearing officers. Yeah, I see Naomi just popped up. Naomi is one of the hearing officers. We need more hearing officers. It's just vitally important. It's interesting because the white kids who come through the program typically are there because they've shoplifted in a store, right? I mean, it's not the schools that are getting the police out on the white kids, and we deal with those kids as well. But for the Black kids who are coming through, it's typically the schools who have disciplined them in school and are putting them into the criminal justice system, which it's inexcusable as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, if you're interested, please reach out to me and I can give you information. You have to be in DeKalb County is the one prerequisite for this particular program. Thanks.
Robin, will you just say a little bit more about what the hearing officers do?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Becky. So when a kid is referred to the program, the first thing that we do is we have a hearing, and there are 2 or 3 of us sitting on a panel, and we talk to the young man or young woman about what happened. We have a description of what occurred, but we want to hear it from their perspective and talk to them about it. They come in with a parent or guardian, and we get their input as well. During that time, we then essentially let them know what they all need to do over the next 60 to 90 days that is part of this rehabilitative program. It can be writing essays on things like peer pressure and alternatives, when things come up that they shouldn't be involved with. We may refer them to certain programs that DeKalb County is offering to help young adults with different kinds of problems. There's a community service piece that they'll have to do. And the other thing as a hearing officer is that you get assigned, each kid is assigned an adult, a hearing officer that they will then be in touch with once a week. And so I have someone now that I just had my first hearing where I was took an active role. And so I've got someone who's now, I'll be speaking with him once a week and speaking with his parent for the next 60 to 90 days and hopefully offering some guidance and helping him not have this reoccur, because we want to keep him out of the criminal justice system going forward. And the recidivism rate tends to be very, very low. So it is a successful program. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Is the interaction, I'm sorry, is the interaction with the kid and the parents and the follow-up, is it in person? Is it by phone?
It's a great question, Pam. So the hearing itself is in person, and it is at the DeKalb County Juvenile Justice Center, which is a memorial sort of across the street from the DeKalb prison. All the follow-up is by phone.
And Robin, there's a couple of questions in the chat. Martha Reese wants to know whether this requires training and whether it's provided.
It does. Training is provided. So they'll do a background check. You have to pass a background check. And then they have 2 evenings of 2-hour trainings. And then you've got to observe at least 2 hearings before you then take a lead role.
And Aquaria wants to know if there are opportunities for non-DeKalb residents to support this.
Sadly, no. I don't like saying no, but that is a strict requirement for this program that it be DeKalb. But you know what, Aquaria, I'm going to ask the person who runs the program if she's aware of a program in other counties. I know Fulton has one. I know you're not in Fulton, but I'll see if she has contact information. If people want to know about opportunities in other counties, please message me and I will see what I can find out for you. Anything else?
Can I interject something real quick, Robin?
Absolutely.
Those of us who live in DeKalb County, you may want to consider becoming a level 3 volunteer, which is what I've done. It gives you an opportunity to actually see what goes on in the schools, and it gives you clearance to and work with some of the. Robin and I had a brief conversation about differences in the charges and the allegations against these kids and the consequences. Depending on which schoolhouse you're in, determines how they handle the situation when you get in trouble. But I think the smartest thing to do, just as an aside, let me do this real quick. 2004, I chaired the subcommittee to review public safety. And one of the things that bothered me was the convoluted information that comes from the charges that the kids are charged with. You can't tell who did what and how many charges they committed back then. I don't know what they're doing now. I haven't asked the question. But I can tell you our schools are a heck of a lot more violent now than they were 10, 20, even 5 years ago. Doesn't matter what school you're in. I can tell you that the drug usage issue is beyond anything you could imagine. We have kids who are overdosing that you don't know about. So the smartest thing to do, I've decided, is that I'm going to do my own time, because I tried to get the schools to call for volunteers and they've been reluctant to do so. I've got a meeting with one of the higher ranking folks this week. But take the time to do the level 3 volunteer. I'll forward you, Becky, the requirements. If you go through the community engagement unit, there's no fee. There's not a $45 fee. So I'm going to try to email it to you, Becky, before I leave. You just follow the process. It takes a little bit of time. There's an online test. Then there's a Zoom meeting with the guy who's in charge of. His name is Gunter. And it's real simple to get engaged, but you do have to go to the police department's office twice, once to get your prints and the second time to get your ID.
Thanks, Ted. And let's see, Martha and Tony, I will get in touch with you directly. Yes.
This is a great opportunity for people to volunteer who are interested in criminal justice reform right at the beginning. So I'm going to just encourage anybody who might be willing to help to put your name in the chat, and Robin can follow up with you.
Yep. Great. And Patty, I see you too. I will get back in touch with you as well.
Thank you to all the folks, and Lauda. Robin, you just saw Lauda in there also.
Great, Lauda. Okay, thanks.
Thank you to Pam Wishay, and huge gratitude to all those folks who are taking leadership in these various ways. There's nothing that is as reassuring as troublers willing to take the lead in these various areas, and really rewarding when people volunteer to help. I apologize for my typing not being muted. I just heard from about 10 of you telling me that, telling me, and then Pat muted me. So my apologies and gratitude. And I'm going to go ahead and make some announcements about dates. So anybody who has to jump off can jump off. But I also really want to invite you to stay on for the song offering, which I must say is kind of extraordinary this time. So let me go ahead and bring up the dates. of our next meeting. So next meeting will be Sunday, March 10th. And a reminder that we will be talking very seriously about the election work that we'll be doing. And so really urge folks to attend and find a place to plug in. Especially want to welcome and urge new troublers to join us and find work that feels congruent for you. And a reminder also to hold the date in April. Instead of having a regular meeting, we will be having a picnic in person, April 7th. Hold the date for that too. And also, before we switch to the song offering, I want to thank again. I want to just remind folks to send PJ lots of love and prayers and wishes for her recovery from this respiratory bug that is so tough. I want to thank Mary Lou, as always, for the PowerPoint slide deck. I want to thank Pam Wishay and Pat for putting together the agenda and the run of show. No small job to put these meetings together, and great gratitude to them. And huge gratitude to everybody taking leadership. And what we will also do in the upcoming meetings is we have 3 troublers who are running for office, and I'm just gonna say their names right here, and then we will come back, right? Gareth Fenley is running for House District. Ted Golden is running for DeKalb County Sheriff. Dominique Cooper is running for Gwinnett School Board. We will be hearing from all of them, but huge gratitude. And 455-197, who says that you would like to help with t-shirts, if you would put your name there, because we don't know who you are, we would love more. Oh, Connie, that's you. Fantastic. Thank you, Connie. Bless you. And the song for closing is thank you to Tara Doyle for turning us on to this song. Tara, gratitude to you. You will recognize it. And this is the extraordinary Melanie Demore who is going to be singing. And I want to say that this is a really good song for Necessary Trouble. It is our aspiration. So, and I sure hope the audio works. Just send me good energy for this.
I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. And when you feel it, you rise, and we think about all the people out there who don't have a voice. This is our time to sing and hold them up. Nod your head if you understand what I'm saying. So when you feel it, and not before, because your heart will tell you when. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone.
For those who are newish to Necessary Trouble, there have always been two pillars of our work, and one is our fierce commitment to action, and the other is love. So may we lift both of those up, and may they help us and guide us and carry us through the year, and may we stand strong for one another and for those who don't have as strong a voice as any of us might. So lots of love and great appreciation for everybody here today. Lots of love and great appreciation for all troublers who might not be here, and big year this year. And there isn't a better group of people that I would rather be paddling with. So great love. Thank you. See you in March.
Great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Viola. Lovely to see you.
Lovely.
Thank you for the song, Tara. Wasn't that beautiful? And isn't she amazing? And wouldn't we like to get her? She does workshops. I'm looking for her online. I can't find her.
Oh, I'll send
I
you
mean,
it.
if you send me, because it looks like I would love to have her. Wouldn't she be wonderful to work with?
Thinking of the Master Chorale or whatever they call themselves now. We should get them to bring her because they've got money.
That would be really, sounds like she does amazing workshops.
Love you. Thank
Love you.
Take care. Stay well.
Yes, for all of us.
Indeed. Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks for your note. I'll wait for Pat. I'll wait for Pat.
Oh, all good, all good, all good.
Oh, good. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to sign off.
How do we sign off? Yeah.